Om Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so we were looking at Navavidha Bhakti. This is the second talk of two. So it is said in the Bhagavatam and elsewhere also. So there are these 9 forms of expression of bhakti. Those who have devotion to the Lord express their devotion in many different ways. We saw last time how important it is for a human being to be able to express what is within. So, of which these are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoho, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. So these are the different types of bhakti that are talked about traditionally. They are not the only ones, obviously, but they are the ones that are most common, most visible, of which we saw the first 3, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Vishnoho Smaranam in the previous talk. Shravanam, listening, importance of listening to the scriptures, to the stories of the Lord. Kirtanam, singing, having heard, then reciting, singing the glories of Ishvara for oneself and also as a means of communication. And Vishnoho Smaranams, remembering actively, proactively, deliberately the Lord. In many different ways we do that, Going on the next one that is talked about is Pada Sevanam. Pada Sevanam. So the word Seva, there's 2 words. Seva means service, to wait upon, to serve. The word Seva also is used in the sense of religious services. Sometimes like in this temple when they do perform prayers, etc. to the deity. So it is called as Seva, Upachara, Pujas and so on. But Seva in general means performing, serving somebody. So those it's a special type of a service. The word Pada gives it a special meaning. Pada means feet. So obviously you don't serve the feet literally in the sense, the feet, but then the feet symbolize something. The feet in our tradition represents a certain attitude, an attitude of reverence, an attitude of devotion. So Pada Seva means serving with an attitude of devotion and reverence. It is service that is devoid of reluctance, sense of resentment, obligation, compulsion, things like that, It's something that one wants to do, something that one chooses to do. Service to others is highly valued in our tradition. Starts with serving parents, Matra Seva, Pitra Seva. So if you all know, many of you are familiar with the story of Shravana Kumar. It is mentioned in Ramayana. So Shravana Kumar was a man whose parents were very elderly. And so at that old age, they wanted to go on a pilgrimage to different tirthas. And they were both blind and not having no strength, weak from age. So but he promised them that he would take them around. So he carried them on his shoulder. And they used to have those sticks and then with 2 baskets. So he would carry them from place to place. So, and then you know a story connected to Dasharatha, and they happened to be in the forest, just to make it very brief. And so Dasharatha was out there hunting, and then he by mistake, he ends up thinking it is some deer. Shravana is filling up his pot of water from the lake or the river. And so he shoots the arrow and he ends up killing Shravana without realizing it. And then when he comes there, he sees what he has done and he's just full of remorse. And then he comes across these parents who are sitting there, and then he goes and tells them what happened. And so they are obviously very distraught, and in their grief, they curse him. They curse him with this putra shoka, that the sorrow, you will also experience this sorrow born of losing the son. Anyway, so that's the story behind how so Dasharatha ends up, so see Rama also losing him. He goes away to the forest and things like that. We all know that story. But Shravana Kumar is looked upon as an epitome, as an example of service to one's parents, Then there are other forms. We talk about Guru Seva, service towards one's teachers, especially from those who we learn religious studies, scriptures. Then there is even Atithi Seva, service to people we don't know. Atithi Satkaraha also it's called as, So service to others, seva and performing in terms of actions and all is tremendously valued in our tradition. The word Pada Seva specifically refers to, so service to Bhagavan with profound reverence. How do I serve the Lord? How does one go about doing that? So one goes about doing it by what we call as a yoga, karma yoga. Karma yoga refers to a certain attitude. Karma yoga is not about actions. It's not that particular actions are called as karma yoga. It really has to do with one's attitude. And what kind of attitude is this? This is an attitude towards my actions. And not only that, the results, my attitude towards the results of the actions that I perform. We all perform actions for a certain purpose. So, he says, in terms of performing action, it is this Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, I'll talk about that more later. But it is an attitude where I have a certain awareness of the presence of divinity that underlines everything in the form of a order, in the form of an infallible order. And I'm attuned to that. And it is also expressed in terms of dharma. And so, keeping all that in mind, I perform the actions that I have to perform. Okay. Okay, someone needs to put on the mute, please. Let me see. Who's this? Yeah, okay, good. So, karma yoga attitude is an attitude that is towards performing the actions. What about the results? Well, results also I accept with certain attitude because it always doesn't go my way. But results are part of the infallible order. So once I have a recognition and an awareness of that, I accept the results of my actions performed, whatever they may be. They may be in keeping with what I want, they may not be in keeping with what I want, but I do not feel shortchanged in the process. I do not feel cheated in the process because they all are so the hands of the Lord, in the form of the hands of the Lord. That is what we call as the karma, And so that attitude of glad acceptance of what we do, having done what we have to do to the best that we can do. So that is called as prasada buddhi, It is said In Bhagavatam also, Samashrita ye pada pallava plavam mahat padam punya yasho murarehe bhavambudir vatsa padam param padam 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 yat vipadam natesha. Beautiful verse where he likens the feet of the Lord to a boat, to a boat that helps me cross over this ocean of samsara. You know. So the jiva, the individual, is struggling through a big ocean with a lot of dangers in it and going up and down, drowning as though. And so this has to be crossed. And how does one do that? So here, the feet, so service at the feet of the Lord becomes like a boat that helps me cross over the ocean. And this, if I'm in this boat, what is this ocean like? Otherwise, it's a huge ocean. But then this ocean reduces to the size. So he says it's the size, it becomes like a water contained in the hoof print of a calf. That's the metaphor in this verse. Beautiful metaphor. So he says, and the person, when is free from misery at every step of the journey, having this attitude of service towards to the Lord, he says. And the one who has this particular attitude really doesn't, he feels fulfilled. One of the benefits of this, or one of the results of this, one of the fruits of this, is a sense of fulfillment. So fulfillment is an amazing thing. The person really doesn't want anything more. He's so totally content. He says, Nanaka prashtham nacha sarva bhaumam, na parameshtyam narasadhipatyam, na yoga siddhir apunar bhavam va vanchanti yat padaraja prapannaha. The one who are padaraja prapannaha, the one who have surrendered to the feet of the Lord, and the ones who live their life with that understanding and their attitude, he says, such a person does not hanker, does not feel the need for even the heavens. People think the whole life is about getting to another place, a better place. Better than what? Better than what you think is a miserable place. Whatever a person thinks gives him unhappiness in this world, in their life, whatever they don't have, they are going to have. That's all. There is no consistency also. Look at all the different heavens described by the different people. They're all different kinds of heavens. So which heaven am I going to go to? Well, I'm going to go to the heaven I seek, really. So whatever the heaven a person is seeking, and then they live a life in accordance with whatever is good, they think they are going to go to that kind of heaven. Okay. So, and they will, perhaps they will also. So, but then he says the one who already lives a life in connection with the Lord, with an awareness of the Lord, of divinity around, he says doesn't even feel a need to seek any heaven later on. Neither he wants any, what about this world? The world also is content as it is. He doesn't want kingship. He doesn't want lordship over the world. He doesn't want even the position of, he says, Brahmaji, the creator. So the one who, I don't want the world, but I'm going to be the maker of the world. Like some people, they don't want to be the king, but they want to be the kingmakers. So like that, somebody may say, I don't want this world. I'm going to be the one who makes the world. No, he doesn't want to be the maker of the world, doesn't want anything in the world. Neither he wants yoga siddhi, all kinds of powers, etc. He doesn't seek. He says he finds content. Such a person is a content person. And what does one have to do to accomplish that? Nothing but have an awareness and serve at the feet of Parameshwara, he says. Touching the feet, there are several signs of this touching the feet, respect, The feet. We're talking about the feet a little bit, symbolism of feet. So, in our tradition, they do that a lot. So it is symbolic. Touching the feet is symbolic of surrender. So symbolic of humility, because feet are the lowest part of the body. The feet of the Lord are described variously. So in our prayers, etc. In Purusha Suktam, for example, Bhagavan Ishvara is called as, he is the one with Sahasrapat. Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. So he is the one who, Bhagavan, the Lord Ishvara, is everything. We keep saying infinite, infinite, infinite. What is the meaning of infinite? Infinite means there is nothing outside infinite. The all-inclusive, truly one that is all. So we visualize Ishvara. If we have to visualize Ishvara as in a form that is manifest, what kind of a form would it be? It would be a form which would be all-inclusive. It has to be infinite. So it's an infinite form. All forms are his form. All the heads are his heads. All the feet are his feet, etc. So he has countless heads. He has countless feet, etc. This is one visualization of Ishvara symbolically in Purusha Sukta. Vishnu Sahasranamam also has a beautiful verse. There it says, Bhu Paudau Yasya Nabhihi Viyat. So here he says, Bhu Padau, feet. Padau, both the feet are the Bhuhu, are this earth, this universe. We can even include. But what for us is the earth, is his feet, Is his. And then, of course, the whole other thing, the infinite, beyond it, is all of him because he's all inclusive. So if earth is his feet, if I serve at his feet, besides the symbolism of reverence and so on, then his feet, I have to be attuned to what is around me. So my relationship, because I have a relationship with the world, a relationship with the earth, a relationship with all that is there, which sustains me, etc. So in that relationship with my environment and with those that are there in the environment, with other beings, etc. So all of this plays out in the attitude of a devotee. That awareness of divinity that is there, underlying all that there is around. Not just underlying. We think underlying means hidden somewhere. No, really speaking, it is hidden because it's everywhere, and we don't see it. So he says that is what is the feet. So I worship with that attitude of surrender to the Lord is so Pada Sevanam says. One of the examples we were seeing, each one of them, there are certain traditional examples that are given. And that there is example of Pada Sevanam is interesting, is given. Tadangri Bhajane Lakshmi. Lakshmi. There is one particular form of Lord Vishnu depicted, where he is lying on the Ananta, on the snake. And then there is Lakshmi seated by his feet. And he's lying there in semi-reclining, kind of reclining posture, semi-asleep. Eyes are not fully awake, neither are they closed. This Ananta represents Shakti. Snake represents power, It's full of power. So, and time, Kala also. And so this particular form is a form of Lord Vishnu, unmanifest, just manifesting, in fact. From that form, Brahmaji arises. And there, Lakshmi is also there, as is Shakti. So it's always about Purusha and Prakriti, Ishvara and Ishvara Shakti. So that latent power that is there in the Lord, unmanifest, then becoming manifest is the manifest creation. And Lakshmi represents that Shakti. So she's there. It's always inseparable. But she's the one which is active. In the sense, manifest is the one that there is activity, there is change, there is time, there is space, there is the whole manifest universe. And Purusha is the one that is the consciousness principle that is changeless. That is at the basis of all. And they are together. And Shakti is Ishvara's Shakti. That is why she is there at the feet. This is nothing to do. Sometimes people get all worked up about this particular form. So why is she at his feet? So we are not talking here about equalities and equities and those kinds of thinking, We are talking about Ishvara and Ishvara's Shakti, which is inseparable. Then there are other forms also. We see Hanumanji, always shown at the feet of Sri Rama. That's another form we are all familiar with. So these are all different forms that show what this attitude is, Padukas also. So Padukas are the footwear. That also has a symbolism in our culture. So we offer worship to Padukas are the feet, representing the feet. We all know the story of Bharata and the Sri Rama's Padukas he takes. These are all examples of Pada Sevanam and attitude and culturally how it is expressed in our tradition. So the next one is Archanam. Archanam. Arch means to praise, to worship, to honor. Worship of the Lord. Worship done at the altar. The infinite always includes me. One should remember. Since infinite includes me, in order to worship, if I want to worship Ishvara, I have to separate myself out of the infinite. I recognize myself as an individual and I invoke the Lord in any particular form. Because all forms are Bhagavan. So invoking Ishvara in a particular form is called as Archa Vigraham. Archa Vigrahas. So there are different forms that we have. There's another whole reasoning for that, the different forms. But then we invoke Ishvara in that particular form and offer certain worship, certain actions, attitudes, behaviors that indicate a worshipful attitude, kayana, vacha, manasa, with my words, with prayers, with my mind, and with certain actions, making offerings and so on. So these are all called as upacharas. So we have traditional based on religious practices called as agamas. We have different ways in which we perform worship. They are pretty much uniform. They only vary in terms of, so brief or more elaborate. They're either more or less elaborate. Called upacharas, shodasha upachara, pancha upacharas, pujas. These are called pujas. 64 upacharas based on various religious traditions called as agamas, Different types of offerings are also made. So Ashtottarams, where we offer different things. Archanas, they're called Archana. Ashtottara Archana. So Sahasra, Shatanamavali Archanas, Sahasranamavali Archanas, like that. So different offerings are there. Different types of things are offered. Kumkuma Archana, Bhasma Archana, flowers, etc. So, Pruthuhu Pujane, different forms of puja. It's all called Archana. An example is given traditionally of Pruthu. Don't know how many of you know this story, but Pruthu was a king. He was regarded as the first king who implored by his prayers Prithvi. So he's called Pruthu. He prays to Mother Earth to bless the living creatures by providing them with their needs, And so Mother Earth obliges, as we all know, and in order to sustain the human beings and other beings also. So he 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 did pujas a lot. Apparently, he did a lot of pujas. He performed 99 Ashwamedha yagas, it is said. These are all very, very elaborate rituals, Takes a lot of time and preparation for each one. And he also came up with this called as Anga Archana Bhakti. They call it a form of puja. It's called Anga Archana Bhakti. So it is visualized, in Archana, we offer many different things. Like I said, give you examples. Here, so Anga is a limb. So each limb of mine, I visualize as a flower, like eyes. My eyes are like a flower. What? Kamalam. Actually, is an offering of flowers. But the flowers are, so really symbolize the different senses. So Anga Kamalam, Netra Kamalam Samarpayami. Shrotra Kamalam Samarpayami. Hridaya Kamalam Samarpayami. Like that. So different sense organs I offer as lotus, each one like a lotus I offer at the feet of the Lord. This is the puja. This is the prayer that a devotee performs. Okay. So you can understand the depth and the meaning behind this. So if I offer, my eyes are like a lotus that I'm offering unto you, that means you are there. In fact, without Bhagavan, without divinity, the presiding deity of the eyes is Surya. The Lord, infinite Lord, invoked in the form of sun, God's son, Surya Devata. He presides over my eyes. In the sense, without that blessing of that divinity being there, my eyes will not do what they are supposed to do. It's not in my hands. I recognize that very well as a devotee. And so, what do I do as thanks for having that? It's given to me. It's not created by me. It's not developed by me. It's given to me. So I make an offering of that in the sense, so in the acknowledgement of what is all there. I don't misuse it. Each sense organ is like that, a certain discipline. So like that, Anga Kamalam, Shrotra Kamalam, Netra Kamalam, it's all the sense organs, etc., all the different limbs, everything is offered. Okay. So this kind of puja, he was the one who initiated this, cause Angarchana Bhakti. It's a little different. There is one other puja also they do as part of the Upachara pujas. For those of you who are a little familiar, it's called Anga Puja. That is different. In that, so different offerings are made, so different angas of the deity. You make an offering. But this is a little different. It is Anga Archana Bhakti. It's called, given as an example in our tradition, which was initiated by this King Pruthu long time ago. Anyway, so Archanam has to do with worship, different forms of worship. Then Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnohu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam. Vandanam. We all know what is Vandanam. Vandanam is to greet, to salute respectfully, to honor, to praise also. Also can be used for worship. Tat pada padma pavanaihi kaya manasa bhasitaihi pranamo vasudevasya vandanam katyate budhaihi. Wise people say that vandanam, being in a specific way, the word vandanam refers to. So the using with the words kayana vacha manasa, with actions, with words, with the mind. So offering prayers, reciting verses, etc. to the Lord, to Ishvara, is what is called as vandanam. And we know there are different forms of vandanam. I mean, different things are there, like Sandhya vandanam. Sandhya is a special type of, prayer done in a particular time, etc. Special kind of prayer that people perform at Trisandhya. It's called Trikala Sandhya. So at dawn, noon, and dusk. So there are 3 times, sometimes even midnight. But then it's Trikala Sandhya, generally dawn, noon, and dusk time. So prayers, elaborate prayers are offered to Surya Devata and other deities. Then there is Deva Vandanam, worship, praise, etc. to the Lord, invoked in the form of various deities. That or whatever, whoever, whatever it may be. Guru Vandanam. So pray Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Parantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. Vande. I bow, I salute. So starting from the Lord and unto to all the teachers. So who have been instrumental in carrying forward this knowledge, great scriptural knowledge, through the generations up to my teacher. So like that, a gratitude, prayer of gratitude. It's called Guru Vandanam. It may be simple in the form of a prayer, or sometimes may be more elaborate in the form of Guru Puja or Deva Puja, Pada Puja, etc. Matrubhumi Vandanam. We all know this. Vande Mataram. There is a beautiful prayer. So where I thank my Matrubhumi. So Bhumi, the earth is Mother Earth. And where I am born, that is special. One always has a special, every mother is a mother. But then one has a special affinity towards one mother who gave oneself birth, one's own mother, naturally. So like that, the Bhumi, the land that bore me, nurtured me, so is likened to a mother. That is Matrabhumi. So there is, we have this Vande Mataram. We recite prayers to the land, motherland of our birth, etc. So these all different forms of Vandanam, prayer, prayerful attitude. Akruraha Abhivandane. Akrura. It's a great story about Akrura, in Bhagavatam. He was a contemporary of Sri Krishna. He's a little older than him. He was older than him, but related to Sri Krishna. They belong to the same Vrishni clan, And he happened to be the minister of Kamsa. And Kamsa, as we all know, so wanted to get rid of Sri Krishna and Balarama. I won't go into too much details. But Kamsa deputizes Akrura who is his minister, to go and fetch Sri Krishna and Balarama from Vrindavan and bring them to Mathura, so that he had this plot, devious plot, that he wanted to kill both of them. Because he was afraid that it was predicted that they would destroy him. So Akrura has no choice. He goes to get Sri Krishna. But Akrura had a understanding of what Sri Krishna was all about. So anyway, so he goes to get him. And there, interesting, as he enters Vrindavan, he sees these footprints on the soil, and Sri Krishna's footprints he sees. So I'm not going to get into this now, but this is a whole another story about Sri Krishna's footprints. Apparently, Sri Krishna had certain marks on his feet. So, like we have palmistry, then you have something called as solistry also, where they read the lines. There are lines that we all have, like thumbprints, which are unique to our footprints. So anyway, so like palmistry, there is a whole other art of solistry. So anyway, so Sri Krishna had certain marks which were represented certain auspicious things. So anyway, this Akrura saw that and he recognized Sri Krishna's, and so he steps down and he offers his prostrations to his footprints. Anyway, then he goes and gets them, etc. On the way back, there's a side story where, so he has this vision of Sri Krishna on that Ananta Shayana, what I just mentioned earlier. And he sings a praise, a song, or not a song, verses in praise of Sri Krishna. So it's called as Akrura's Vandanam. It's beautiful, beautiful verses, in that. So I won't get into that. I don't have time for that. But when you get a chance, or I'll do it some other time. So this Vandanam by Akrura, where he describes the glory of Sri Krishna and offers his salutations to him, So many other examples are there of what these different types of, our scriptures are full of praise and these prayers. And the prayers are not just about praise, really speaking. Prayers are also descriptive. They describe. In describing things, we learn to understand what is the nature of something, That's what descriptions are about anyway. So in prayers, when there are prayers towards the Lord, it's not all about thank you, or give me this or give me that. But it is describing the glories, the divinity, its manifestations, the laws, etc. And through those prayers, through those praises, through those descriptions, we gain a bigger and bigger understanding, a deeper understanding of what Ishvara is about, how we understand the Lord. And so that makes it possible for us to relate to Bhagavan. Yasya smritya cha namokta tapo yajna kriyadishu nunam sampurnatameti sadyo vande tamachyutam. One of the Puranas, he says, so the Lord, I offer my salutations to the Lord, to Bhagavan, the one who is constant, who doesn't change, the changeless. Just who's reciting whose names, etc. Vandanam. This is about Vandanam. He says one gains the results that one gains from performing all kinds of penances, rituals, and things like that, Next we come to Dasyam. Dasyam, Dasaha is the one who serves. A servant is called as Dasa, servant of Bhagavan. One who has surrendered to the Lord. The service is another important thing, So understood and misunderstood. It is service without the attitude of servitude, without servitude. Servitude has, the word servitude has certain negative connotations. So it implies a certain sense of control, condescending attitude, towards the person who serves you and so on. That is not what is meant here. Servant is one who serves. That's all. There is no gradation here, or there is no superiority. It is in the context of devotion. So the one who serves the Lord is called as a dasaha. So dasa, he says, how do I serve the Lord? How do I serve Bhagavan? Where is Bhagavan? I don't even see him around anywhere here. How am I supposed to serve? Serve. There's also a lot of wrong ideas about serving Ishvara, serving the Lord, Everybody talks about serving the Lord. Everyone means those who are have certain religious bent, inclinations. They want to serve their God, And so what does it mean to serve? To serve my God. How does one do that? By doing what God wants me to do? Or by doing what I think God wants me to do? Does God want me to do anything? And what is that? How is that? So there is, in the guise of, or in the notion of serving God, or in the mistaken understanding of serving God, a lot of things have been done in humanity which have not been good, where others have been hurt, others have been destroyed by people who thought they were serving God, or they are serving God even now, So does Bhagavan really want people to serve him by hurting other people? What kind of it is? What does God want from me? Is service about fulfilling God's needs? Does God have any needs? Any personal needs? We saw last time, Samas Sarva Bhuteshu. I am the same for all beings. Bhagavan says in Gita, I am the same for all beings. There is nobody whose I prefer over the other. There's no one I dislike. There is no one I like. That's a very profound statement. Bhagavan doesn't have preferences. Who's he going to choose, etc. So, Bhagavan is the one, he's Srishti, Sthiti, Layakarta. He's the one who is behind this whole manifestation. What to talk of individual, small little beings, And so he doesn't need any proxies or deputies or anything to do his whatever Bhagavan wants to do. So here, then how do I serve him? I serve him by recognizing what is that divinity around me. Pada Sevanam, we just saw. I serve Bhagavan, I serve the Lord by living in keeping with the laws, the universal laws that are applicable to all equally. So this is what Dasyam is about, Living a life that is consistent with universal values, with dharma, with a sensitivity, with an understanding of divinity, with a sensitivity to the world around me, not just the physical world, but also physical world and the other beings, all beings. Living in harmony with the world. The world was not created for human consumption. then why would there be other beings in it? All Bhagavan needs to do is just dump out some human beings here. And is provided everything anyway to survive. And we survive. Why do we need all these other things? But there are other beings too, like each and every one of us. So let them live their lives, etc. So a certain sensitivity to my environment, to the other beings, to life, to divinity, that is service. That is dasyam. That is service to Ishvara. Not Ishvara, I am doing this for God's sake. Really speaking, when we think about it, God doesn't need us to do anything for Bhagavan's sake, What can we do? So, he doesn't need to make any deals with people. Kapipati Dasye, the epitome of an example of Dasyam is Hanumanji. We all know. So the Hanumanji is the epitome of a devotee, epitome of Dasyam, the humility, service, the way he served, wanting nothing else. He didn't even want heaven. It is said at the end, when it is Sri Rama's time to return to his abode from earth, then everybody wants to accompany. Everybody, whoever, people who are close to him, around him, they don't want to be left without Sri Rama. They also want to go with him. And so at that time, Hanumanji also happens to be around there. They're all talking about this. So Sri Rama asks Hanumanji, what about you? Everybody's asking, how come you're standing quiet? So he says, I don't want to go. I don't need to go anywhere with you. Because you are here with me all the time, whether you are there or not. So he says, I continue to remain here. I am quite content. You just bless me that I continue to be as I am, because I am very happy with my experience of being non-separate from you. Yavad Ramakatha Veera Charishyati Mahitale Tavad Sharire Vatsyanti Prana Mamana Samshayaha. He said that as long as this earth is there, as long as your name is there, as long as your stories are being told, which is true for Ishvara, as long as this earth has been there has been an awareness of the divine in the minds of people, whoever they were. We may think they were primitive or whatever we want to think, but there was a cognition of that, and it's going to remain that way. He says, until I have no doubt that I will see myself as separate from you. And that's his response, So it's okay, I don't care to physically go with you. And he is blessed that way by Sri Rama. And so we all believe he is one of the Chiranjeevis we look upon in our tradition. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnoho Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam. Sakhyam is friend. Sakha is a friend. Sakha, Sakhi, a companion. Even a close relative is called as Sakha. So this attitude of friendliness. Okay. Who's a friend? We all know who friends are. Friend is somebody, we all need friends. Every human being needs friends. We are not just born. If we did not need friends, we would just be born alone. We are not born alone. There are others around. And it's not just around. We need to connect. We form relationships. We need companionships. It's also not only about companionship, it is about growth. At every stage of life, one needs friends in order to grow, because you need someone we can trust. So, friend is someone who's trustful, trustworthy, who's one we trust, who helps one grow, who's not threatening, who doesn't manipulate, etc., with whom we can relax, be ourselves. These are all different characteristics of friendships, necessary in every stage of life for people to grow. And so this is as an individual, if I want to think of this life. But then I come alone. I've come alone. I go alone. Back. Go on. I don't know whether we go back or we go forward. Hopefully we go forward. So we go forward. We've come, but all alone. But in the middle, it's not alone. I need a sakha. But as a jiva, as a living being, so I come alone, friends, I go alone. What about the other side? This way, that way. Is there any growth? If there is there, if I'm around, if I'm there as a jiva, who's my sakha? Who's my friend? I can't create a new bunch of friends every time to be with me. So there is one constant. And that constant is Bhagavan. So he's called as Marga Bandhu. Bandhu is a close relative or a friend. Is called as a Bandhu. Marga Bandhu is the one, a friend in one's path, in one's journey. In one's journey of life, we have many friends. In one's journey as a jiva, from life to life, the friend that we have is none other than Bhagavan, Because to show, this is what a lot of things are indicated by the Puranas, that infallible order that sustains always, So, looking upon Ishvara as a Marga Bandhu, a beautiful example of that is given on Arjuna. Arjuna was looked upon himself as a friend to Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna's life is about Ananda and friendship. He brought joy to everybody, whether it was as a child, to the other friends, to the other children, to the adults, as an adult, as a teacher, even to animals. They said the cows would love to listen to his music. You should look at the Indian cows. I know those, but here also I'm sure they love music. Many of them, seem to love music. So he later on realizes the greatness of Sri Krishna and in fact apologizes to him in Bhagavad Gita that I just looked upon you as a friend, but then he became his teacher. So looking upon Bhagavan, Ishvara as one's Marga Bandhu is that attitude of Sakhyam, or friendliness, or looking upon Bhagavan as a friend. And finally, there is Atmanivedanam, which is surrender, total surrender of oneself. Nivedanam means to surrender. Not only surrender, to entrust. one's self. This is the ultimate. The ultimate. We all know there are different kinds of surrender. There is something surrender you see in the war. At the end of a war, there is a surrender. A mutually agreed upon surrender. It's an outcome of a war. One side surrenders. The loser surrenders to the victor. Okay. Under certain terms and conditions, right? You have to give up certain territory, you have to give up compensation, you have to do this, you have to do that. Okay. That is one kind of surrender. What is surrender to the Lord? Is it like this? Is it like the loser surrendering to a winner, to a victor? Is it like the one who's mugged, who surrenders to the one who mugs him? Who holds him up with a knife? Is it that kind of a surrender? In surrender, there is always some kind of giving up, we think. What does one give up? How do I surrender to Ishvara? What do I surrender to the Lord? What do I have to surrender to Bhagavan, who has given me everything? I can only surrender what I have, what belongs to me. So in order to understand surrender to Ishvara, to the Lord, one has to understand the relationship between an individual and Ishvara. It's unlike a relationship between people. Relationship between people is between individuals. Not all relationships are the same. They're depending on roles. I'm a father, a son, between a father and a son, an employer, employee, all kinds of relationships are there. A country and a citizen. These are all relative, role dependent. There is one relationship which we see is universal. Applies to not only every human being, applies to every being. And that is the relationship between the cause and the effect, the creator and the created, the individual and the total, what we call the Jiva and Ishvara, the devotee and his Lord. That applies to every living being. That is indeed universal, that relationship. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about 4 types of devotees. Arthaha, Artharthi, Jignasu and Jnani. He says the one who sees Jnani, just look at the Jnani. The one who sees himself, understands this relationship of the individual with the total, of the devotee and the Lord. That person is non-separate from me. He is indeed, I am non-separate from him, he is non-separate from me. And he recognizes his non-separation from me also, he says, So in that, Jnani is the one who, in that recognition of the non-separation, there is something that is surrendered, given up. And what is given up is this sense of I, the self, as separate from the Lord. The sense of separation creates this entity, this individual. There is something that is born. What I think I am, the individual, is something that is created, superimposed upon something that is born. That is essential, and this is put together. The one that is surrendered, he says, is the one that sense of separation, the sense of individuality And that comes about by knowledge, what we call as self-knowledge. This is Atma Nivedanam. It is Atma Nivedanam is not a declaration. It's not in terms of proclaiming something or declaring something. I give myself up. Say, I give up. Like the person says, I give up. And then that's a strategy actually to do something else. But no, there is not a proclamation. It's not a declaration. It's not some emotional catharsis either. Surrender to the Lord. An outpouring of sentiments is not. It's not some kind of self-absorption from which I come back the same person. But it is in the form of, as a grace of the Lord, as a consequence of self-knowledge, acceptance, in a mind that has become mature and that has learned to recognize. So through learning and through prayers, etc., that non-separation is called as surrender, Atma Nivedanam. Hanumanji again is a prime example. He says, Deha buddhya tava dasosmi, Atma buddhya, Jiva buddhya tava amshakam, Atma buddhya tvamevaham, iti me nischita mati. In talking about his relationship to the Lord, he says, so when I look at myself from the standpoint of an individual, this individual body, Deha, I am your dasaha. Dasyam, we saw what dasyam is. I am your servant. I am there to serve you. I want to serve you. Jiva buddhya, as an individual made up of this body, mind, intellect, etc. Tava amshakam, I am part of you. I am the individual, you are the total. So the individual is always a part of the total. From that standpoint, I am a part of you. Atma buddhya, from the standpoint of my essential self, that changeless principle that is within me, that is my essential being, that is my very being, in fact. And that is nothing but you that keeps everything what it is. That spark, what we call as a spark of divinity, but it's an all-pervasive spark. He says, Tvam eva ham. I see myself as non-separate from you. He said, this is my firm understanding. In this understanding is Atma Nivedanam. So thus, we've seen these 9 types of bhakti. These are not the only forms of expression. There are so many ways. Each individual expresses their devotion in their own way, in the context of their relationship with Ishvara. We must always remember that. But this is what we can see around us, we identify with, we strive for, and we try to understand. So with this, I'll conclude these 2 talks. And Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.